Episode 67, Stirring the Dust. Greetings.
Hello. And how is everything this week?
Not too shabby. Yourself?
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Too early to tell here halfway through.
All right.
Yeah. I have to see the doctor tomorrow. I haven't been to the doctor in a while. I actually went to the doctor for something several years ago. And no idea that I had a different issue, which I was diagnosed with, and that was a hernia, or as they said, 2 hernias. But no pain, nothing. I can lift things. No, I had no idea that I had any kind of hernia problem. And then over the last couple of weeks, I've been noticing it a little bit, a cough or sneeze while standing more so than sitting down. All of a sudden, I would kind of feel it, and it's gotten to the point where, like today, like most of the day, I just felt it. It's not like a terrible pain or anything, but I'm like, okay, well, it's taken this long to get this bad, but it seems to now be progressing a little bit, and I figure I better go see a doctor and figure out what we're going to do about it. Which the most likely fix for it would be surgery, which I was told that back when I was first diagnosed, and I was like, why would I undergo surgery for something that's giving me no problems at all? But now I'm like, okay, it's still not bad. Like, I can do things, I can move, whatever. And it still doesn't actually hurt when I lift things. It's more, again, if I stir up too much dust and I sneeze, I feel it pretty good then. Or it's just kind of there, kind of like a headache that's more of an annoyance than a really like, oh my God, I've got this terrible headache. So, yeah, finally go see a doctor,
You should just stop stirring the dust. Just
Yeah. I
Which-
kind of work in this dusty, dirty environment, though, and so I guess I could quit my job.
there you go. And I know it might be a little too early for episode title suggestions, but stirring the dust it's got title potential.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what you've been saying though is that as Weird Al would diagnose it, that you've been living with a hernia.
That is true.
So
Yeah.
maybe just listen to that song. There might be some tips in there.
Yeah, I might do that. I haven't heard that particular one for a while now.
It comes up in my rotation because every single morning, with the exception of the last 8 weeks for WandaVision, has been my Weird Al shuffle playlist. Every Weird Al song in a giant shuffle. That's literally how I start every morning. So I do hear Living with a Hernia every now and again. But with the WandaVision show happening, I've been buying the theme songs and the other songs that are happening within the episodes, and I have my own WandaVision playlist. So, but I did go back to Weird Al after this series finale.
See, now I have a Spotify account, and I have this massive playlist on there. It's just huge. It's like 300 I mean, there's many hours worth of music as there are days in a year. It is. It's close. It's like 365 hours or something like that. And I found that if I put it on shuffle, it still seems to like do the same. I mean, there's a lot of songs still that it goes through, but there's a lot of songs that I never go through. So currently, I'm listening to the whole thing. I mean, not currently, like right now at this moment, but when I turn it on,
Yeah.
um, and I'm like, there's songs that like I swear I put that in there. So I'm now listening to it all in alphabetical order.
Ooh.
Now the problem with doing that is you get some songs that you have multiple versions. So sometimes I'll jump ahead, pull up the queue and like move a few things within. I'll shuffle around the shuffled queue, just so that I don't have, several versions of whatever song. Sometimes it's because I have a live version in there, or sometimes I have a different artist covering the same song, or whatever it is. But yeah, there's probably as many times of like the same artist doing a different version, because it's like a demo version or a live version or an extended version, or you got the radio play version or the the full album version or whatever, and they're on there, and so I'll have to kind of move those around. And this is like the only way that I know of that I'm actually going to be able to get through my entire playlist for a change. So yeah, I've been working on it here and there. I mean, I don't listen to it a lot. I play it in the car depending on which car I have. So about every other day on my way to work or home, I'll play it. If I'm working up in Sheboygan, that gives me about 2 hours out of the day that I'm just listening to music and
So yeah, the only
eventually I'm through. I think I just started the F's, so I've got a little ways to go.
yeah, once you get rid of all of the multiple versions, you'll find out you got maybe 2.5 hours of music, so for one Sheboygan ride worth
Yeah,
of music.
yeah,
uh,
because it's a little under an hour drive. So yeah, yeah. I,
uh,
I actually started thinking, oh, I've never been much of a podcast listener. I'll listen occasionally to a few, but it's like, well, if I'm doing that, um, then that would be a good time to start listening to podcasts regularly. And that's one of the reasons I don't listen to podcasts regularly is I just don't listen to anything for that long. So it's usually I'll put on some music, listen to it for whatever, go for a little drive or whatever. But I don't really have an opportunity where I'm just doing something where I can like pop in earbuds and whatever and just listen to podcasts. So otherwise, I probably would. So if I were to be going to Sheboygan more often for work, then I could probably check out a podcast or two and have the time to listen to it.
the one problem that I run into with my Weird Al playlist that I keep forgetting to remove from the list is that one of his songs is a hidden track on one of the albums, and I think it's like a 10 or 12 minute literally silence. It's the hidden track.
Yeah.
There's nothing on it, so it'll just be like, oh, what the heck is my iPod rebooting or something? Like, what's going on? I'm like, the damn hidden tracks.
Freeze up. So yeah, some hidden tracks would do that, where they have a large amount of space. There are some tracks where they would do it, and I don't know how they've done it in other ways. Thinking back to way back when we listened to CDs, and I know that some of those you would get like these, just it would all of a sudden go through these tracks on some of them, where it would sound like, I don't know, you just hear it skipping through tracks, and all of a sudden you'd be on this hidden track number 23 on an album with 11 songs on it, and so I'd just skip through several tracks, and then you'd still probably have a little bit of space, and it would play the song. But at least on those, when you could actually listen to just the track, if you were able to skip to it, and a lot of those CDs you couldn't actually skip ahead to it unless you listened through the final song. If you just tried to go to, like I said, track 23, it would be
Yeah.
like there's no track 23. if you listen to it and then you would go through, that's fine. But on those versions, if you get that version of a song on a playlist like Spotify would have or something like that, I'm not certain, but I think you might actually not have like 10 minutes of just silence in there. I think those versions are actually shorter. But I think more often they did the thing where it's like, yeah, it's a hidden track. You get to the end and it's like, if you didn't stop it or whatever, it would just, there'd be nothing. And then all of a sudden out of nowhere, something would start playing again. And you're like, oh, it was great when you actually had an album that you didn't know that there was a hidden track because it was, hidden.
It was so hidden. The people that put it on there didn't even know they put it on there.
It's just no credits for it or anything. It's just on there. You don't know about it. So,
but you know what did have a lot of credits? The WandaVision series finale.
it did it get less credits as it went on? Because I feel like the first, handful of episodes, the credits just seemed to go forever at the end. And then I kind of feel like at the end they weren't that bad, or maybe I just got used to them.
Yeah, I think maybe getting used to it, and then with the last couple episodes, we've had some bonus scenes, so maybe just
Breaking
the
it up.
anticipation of So that might, because I know I think the other ones you're sitting there expecting that something's going to happen. It probably just draws it out even longer. But as we've been talking about on the show, 9 episodes of WandaVision available on Disney Plus. We've been talking about the episodes, and we will talk about the finale in this episode, full spoilers. The overall synopsis is basically picking up exactly where we left off, and we jump right into action. A lot of action going on throughout this entire episode. Got a big witch battle between Agatha and Wanda. We've got that vision on vision action. I was praying for, I was crossing the fingers for it.
And this is funny too, because I was thinking about all those things that we talked about on the last episode, because I actually just posted that episode just a little while ago. And as I'm doing it, I was thinking, well, it's too bad that I didn't post it right away, because now I'm posting it after the episode came out. So it's, we could have just like waited until it and then be like, hey, what's your prediction for? But I wouldn't have cared, except that thinking about what we talked about, we were pretty much on track with what they did. And as I've talked to people about what I thought they would do and whatever, I mean, that pretty much happened. I didn't know the specifics, but I had a pretty good idea of some of the general things that they were going to do, and that all kind of came to be.
Yeah, and I think what this show taught everybody is that while fan theories are fun and it's great to talk about, and it created a lot of great conversation over the last 8 weeks, 9 weeks, and but what it turns out is that the show at the end of the day was shockingly about Wanda and Vision rather than setting up X-Men or introducing this concept.
Well, some people actually had to complain that they were surprised how little Monica Rambeau played a part into it. And one comment that I saw kind of summed it up best. It's WandaVision. It's not the Wanda and Vision and Monica show. So it did make sense that they focused on those characters. And we know, and we'll get to that later, but we know that we're going to have more of Monica. I mean, she'll get her time to shine.
Like going into the Guardians movie, I wasn't like, well, how come Thanos is only in this for 2 minutes? I'm like, I need Thanos for at least a half hour, and I got to see him getting stones, his kidney stones, Infinity Stones, everything.
Yeah, we weren't watching Thanos of the Galaxy or, Thanos Infinity War. I want to mention that for those who are new to this, whatever, you watch the episode as we're talking about it. right? You've got it playing.
Yeah, you can see it on my face.
And I just wanted to mention that because every once in a while it looks like you're sitting in front of a fire or something. There's some flickering going on. A lot of it, sometimes you'll see some like blues and stuff like that, but a lot of it was kind of the warm colors, the orange and the reds and everything. So, so as I'm watching this, I'm thinking, if I didn't know, I might think that you're just like, you forgot to pay your heat bill or whatever, so you got a fire going in your room there trying to keep warm.
Now that would have been great if you had told me that off air, because then I could have just had a big bag of marshmallows and I would have just been roasting marshmallows off the screen just to get all of the newcomers to the show just to be like, hey, he's making s'mores right in his living room.
Go grab the marshmallows and everything. We'll just edit that out.
Okay. Speaking of grabbing the marshmallows, the giant marshmallow of this episode was the White Vision. I think that was a good enough segue.
Yeah.
He
I mean, he was more white than Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, so it's
White Vision.
Here's where we joke about how white he is.
Yes.
He's so white, all the fans approved.
Yes. Yeah, they really whitewashed Vision in this series. It was our big moment at the end of last week's episode, seeing the Vision. We talked about that and the comic influence and all that stuff, and it cut to like one of my favorite moments of just this whole series, where you see Wanda and White Vision kind of have their meet cute, if you will. It doesn't get very cute once he's kind of touching her face and everything, and then all of a sudden he just starts squeezing, and
you hear like, bones cracking.
And she sold that so well too. It's just like, I was just like, her head's gonna pop and the show's gonna be over, and then it's all going to be about the Fantastic Four and Mephisto. But
you gotta love the exaggerated sound effects there, because you can hear the bones just crunching. And it's not like he let go and she's got like permanent like indentations in her face or anything.
And that led into the Vision on Vision action with him coming in, but we got a lot of Agatha versus Wanda, bunch of crazy stuff that was going on, which I thought was pretty entertaining. I was glad to see it, while we've had action throughout the show, but it's one of those things that even in a comic book, if you're getting 6 issues, you'll get your awesome 1 and 2 issue action story, and then you'll see a little, story building in the middle and kind of saving their budget, even if it's a comic book. But then also it's just like, bang, all right, let's use all our money for the final episode. And this pretty much kind of followed that idea of giving us our big MCU type of action.
Yeah, I heard some or read some comments complaining about some of the action, the fight scenes and stuff like that. And I didn't find them disappointing or cheap or anything. I thought they were done. Especially, I mean, if you look at this as a TV show versus a movie, and I think they were movie quality. But if you think of it more in terms of getting a TV show, they were great special effects and action sequences and everything. If I was going to point to a Marvel thing,
I just got a good pause there.
It's like Home Alone.
She was Kevin McAllister the whole time.
Yes. It was Kevin.
But yeah, MCU movie, action, movie, TV effects, you were saying.
But I thought they were great, especially if you think of it in terms of a TV show. But now as we've gone to all these streaming services, what we're getting for special effects and stuff like that just kind of blow other TV kind of out of the water on that, because they do have bigger budgets, I think, than what you would have. Like, if you had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they've done some special effects and everything, but not like to the extent of this.
Yeah.
They were a little bit lower than like the theatrical stuff of MCU. And speaking of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., so the Darkhold,
Yes,
No,
keep
no,
talking.
no. If you're familiar with Agents of Shield, and they actually did a storyline using the Darkhold, and I believe now we've brought the Darkhold actually into WandaVision, and
I've got the Darkhold now.
and that's another version. See, and people kind of pointed that out because some people were like, "It's the Darkhold, so Agents of Shield is canon," and then people were like, "Well, no, it's a different. Look at it again. It's a different Darkhold. It looks different, so it's not
Runaway
canon."
Runaways had the Darkhold as well.
Um, and so it's been used before, but I haven't seen anything that makes me think for sure that yeah, it's those shows aren't canon or whatever. I think they easily could be. You know, all it would take to really make those shows canon would be to just you know throw an appearance of one of the characters or something in it and go see you know
See, now the closest thing to connect the Netflix Marvel stuff to the ABC, Hulu type of stuff was the fact that they had Luke Cage, I think, was on TV or in a newspaper thing that one of the Runaways, I think it was on Runaways or Cloak and Dagger, I forget which one now, but you actually saw Mike Coulter in some sort of quick little like news cameo, just a still frame of something. And, that was their connection there. Now, thinking back into Netflix Marvel, with exception of mentioning the incident in New York and the big green guy and the guy with the hammer and the guy with the suit and them talking about that, but I missing? Did they have any connective tissue beyond the audible mention?
no they without directly saying what happened we knew about the uh the attack on New York from Avengers, and we knew about the stuff. We knew what they were talking about, even though they didn't come out and say, Hulk, is the big green guy or um, whatever. So, and it was kind of weird that they didn't just come out and say it, but I don't know. Some people needed that, and I never needed that. I felt like, okay, I know that this is all part of one universe, and just being told that it's part of one universe was enough for me to go, okay, this is all part of one universe.
Yeah, and I think they may have said Stark, or maybe saw like a Stark logo. I think in Daredevil. I'm trying to
Yeah,
remember,
I think there was something like that.
but it's like you said too. I mean, I can pick up the Runaways comic that's going on right now, and yes, we know it's in the Marvel universe. It's published by Marvel, but it's not referencing King in Black or anything like that. But it's we got to a point where we're getting spoiled with all of this connective tissue to the point where we're just like, well, now it it's not canon if we don't see Captain America show up on Runaways or something.
Yeah,
But you know
right, right.
they're still
Um,
telling good stories. Watch it
yeah,
for the stories, and
you could pick any movie and just be like, you know, well, I'm trying to think of a movie that's not, something that's not directly, because they've done a good job of mixing everything in there. But you know, you could pick any Marvel movie and say that some other movie's not related to it. But even the Incredible Hulk, even though they recast Bruce Banner and whatever, I mean, it's still part of the universe. It's part of the MCU.
they brought General Ross over a
Right.
couple times. So
And that kind of connected it further. Um, and so that was all part of it. I mean, you could really make the leap and say, that Hulk was part of it too, but just because there's nothing that actually says it wasn't. You had different actors and everything, but there's nothing in any of them besides who portrayed them to say no, it wasn't part of it.
other
And
than Stanley's cameo,
so yeah, I mean, there's different ways that you could argue it. And Agents of Shield, the big debate there is because they started playing around with time and realities and stuff, and now they're like So I think you would have to kind of say, well, at least the beginning of Agents of Shield. I mean, it would all be canon,
Yeah.
right? Still, but the argument might be that later seasons weren't in the same timeline, reality, whatever of the
Yeah,
multiverse.
once you got past season 3, then things got a little, they kind of went off on their own path. And
Right. That doesn't mean it's not canon. It just means that it's potentially not any longer in the same universe. They might have diverged into a separate timeline, and then we focused on that timeline, that reality.
yeah, because I think if I remember that lead guy that's on Shield, Phil Coulson, I think I saw him in an Avengers movie once. He might be. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if
You know
he's.
what? I actually feel like there were some things referenced in Agents of Shield from some of those movies,
Yeah, I don't
like
know.
somebody's death, and I feel like there might have been some cameos too.
Yeah, and I wonder. They had this whole thing about Hydra and everything. I don't know if that ever
Yeah.
panned out, into anything bigger. But
But it you know what? It probably wasn't canon.
that's true.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thinking about it.
for those unaware, they had less. The creative teams had less connection. You had Jeff Loeb running Marvel Television, which is different from Marvel Studios, and you could understand that as the movies, when they made Agents of Shield, Avengers just became a big surprise hit at the box office to the number wise, just how much money it made. Um, so they're like, all right, we can spin this off into a TV show. And then the MCU just continued to get bigger and bigger after the Avengers. And that gets to a point where it's just like, all right, well, you're not, communicating with back and forth, and you're on completely different schedules. And then when you're doing the Netflix stuff in there, and those are all because, there was some hope that maybe we'd see the Defenders show up in Infinity War or something, but it's all just legalities and just contracts and schedules. But now, when we talk about WandaVision, we have Kevin Feige, who the whole Marvel television thing is basically wrapped, and that era is over. There's still a couple things that are, the Modoc show that's coming out, the animated show, and a couple things just kind of lingering in there. But for the most part, anything from Marvel television live action is all under one house of Marvel Studios with Kevin Feige, who now has some sort of comic credit too into the Marvel Comics executive type of thing. So it's pretty safe to say, with WandaVision as the perfect example, that we are going to have that very much canon back and forth of a TV show going into the movies and vice versa.
Now would actually be a good time to introduce some of that Netflix stuff, because number one, that the time period is up, where they had that deal that Marvel couldn't do anything with them for however long it was, but that time period has expired.
Yep.
The other thing is, in story, we had this thing that happened. I'm trying to think, what was it? So there's an explanation now.
I was waiting.
There's an in-story explanation now that can be used for why nothing has progressed with any of those characters.
Yeah.
So now would be a good time to actually start, doing that. I mean, there's been the rumors of like, hey, let's possibly not Daredevil, but throwing Matt Murdock in as, Spider-Man's lawyer, or, what there's been some talk and rumors and things like that. So now would be a good time to do it.
They're in that position, much like Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool, where it's just like, you can get away with not seeing Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and Jamie McAvoy and Jennifer Lawrence. You can get away with never seeing them again as those characters. But when you do that with Deadpool, that's a decision that is not going to please literally anybody. And they know financially, and it works with Deadpool, where it's just like, well, that's their gift because they can continue to do it with Deadpool because that plays to the character's strengths. But with these Netflix ones, this is another one of those weird things where everybody loves those actors and those characters and those portrayals, and many think that they've got shortchanged because we could have had more seasons with them. It's that tough thing where it's just like, well, if we introduce Daredevil into the MCU and cast Zach Efron, just to throw it out there, um, it's going to be like, well, what the hell? Charlie, I'm canceling Disney now or something. It's that thing where it's just like they almost have to. They don't have to, but they have to.
Yeah, I mean they do. I mean it's absolutely there's no other option. You know,
Yeah,
if you're going to bring Matt Murdock into it, it's going to have to be Ben Affleck.
exactly. It's 100% Ben Affleck. Um, but yeah, going back to WandaVision, because that's what we're here to talk about. Um, Overall, as you know, without having to talk about every single thing, but overall, as a show, talking about the idea how the show really escalated into a fan theory every single week. I've listened to a lot of interviews from the directors and the writers and the creators addressing the fact that literally all of those things were not even any intention of them being mentioning the aerospace engineer just so they can introduce a Reed Richards type character. That the stork or the bug or the rabbit or Evan Peters were Mephisto. None of that stuff was part of their plan. And I think right before the finale, in a very rare position where one of the creators had said, "Well, I think there's going to be some people probably disappointed with the finale in the sense that we have all of these expectations that we built up on ourselves based off of what little Easter eggs or what we were building from an Easter egg that wasn't. For example, the kick-ass reference from the Halloween episode,
Yeah.
that wasn't a kick-ass reference. That was the kid saying that and them just saying it, and that's just how it was. And it
Yeah, it
wasn't.
was a relatively common phrase that
Yeah, but it
was
was
thrown.
just like it's something like that because I mean I flipped out on that moment, but I didn't say like, oh, now kick ass is canon or something. But just the idea of that happening, that wasn't even that small thing wasn't meant to be anything.
But when you think about it, and it's like a lot of people thought that, but really, if you took any actor or actress that was in this, and you said something from some other show that they were on,
Yeah.
you wouldn't go, "Hey, that's an Easter egg."
Hey man, you punch real hard. Your fist is like an iron. But yeah, so all of that aside, when I went into the show and I heard going back to Age of Ultron, loving Wanda and Vision and seeing that they were both introduced in that movie. Vision saves her at the end of that movie when she's kind of in the rubble after killing Ultron. He swoops in, scoops her up, and there's just a slight moment where she's wondering what's going on, and she looks at Vision of just like oh, he just came and saved me. And early on before that, he's out there on the balcony, and she's just staring at him. She's fascinated about Vision. So ever since that happened, and then their development into Civil War, I'm thinking, there's a lot of stuff going on. They're probably not going to give them a movie. We're just only going to get the little moments in the Avengers movie, and I was fine with it because I'm like, there's a lot of stuff going on. You can't make a Wanda and Vision movie and have people go see it and enjoy it. So when the Disney Plus stuff happened and they announced the television show, my expect not expectations, but my excitement was through the roof. And so I went into that show expecting a show about Wanda and Vision. And after 9 episodes, roughly 6 hours, whatever it ends up being, I got a pretty darn good show about the relationship of Wanda and Vision. And without getting Reed Richards or Mephisto or the multiverse or having Evan Peters be Pietro from the X-Men movies, blah, 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 that didn't take anything away from the show I signed up for. So
Yeah.
I obviously absolutely loved it. But do you have any overall thoughts on throwing in some of those expectations or just the characters in general and how they dealt with their post Endgame story?
I don't have any overall thoughts on anything. um,
Well, that's been a good podcast, and we'll see you next week.
no, getting a show like this is, and I haven't looked all the total times, but we kind of talked about it early on before we knew the times. Essentially, we probably got a couple movies out of it,
Yeah, at least three
at least
movies.
at least a couple. Um, and then when you think about what came before, and then the fact that we know that we're getting something, I don't know how it's continuing, but somehow it's continuing in Doctor Strange. This is what we've been told. So it suddenly feels like we've gotten like it's the WandaVision movies. Um, not just a show, because we can go back and we can look at all the stuff um, from Civil War, and from all these different things, and know that we're going further, and we're going to get Doctor Strange, and we're likely to get something else down the road. And I don't know if there's going to be another Avengers, you know, at some point. You would think that we would, that they're still gonna have an Avengers team that's probably gonna get a Spider-Man and a Doctor Strange, and maybe a Falcon or a Winter Soldier possibly being involved in that. Maybe one of them as a Captain America. I'm not sure, because that might be what we get out of out of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm not sure, but I think part of it might be that you see them out there practicing with the shield and stuff like that. So does it become a like, okay, you're supposed to take up the mantle, but you're not ready to take up the mantle, kind of thing. So, I've kind of wondered, is that where we go with it? Is actually getting to that point where, okay, now we have a Captain America.
Yeah,
Um,
WandaVision ultimately dealt with Wanda becoming the Scarlet Witch full on with costume, and which was a cool thing, to see the Halloween episode where we got their play on their comic book costumes. And honestly, I was satisfied because I'm like, oh, that's enough little nod for me to get excited because that costume's ridiculous to continue on in a serious MCU. But by the end of the series, you see her in that battle, and you saw the little red tiara with the magic going on, and I thought, okay, maybe that's all we're gonna get. But
yeah,
then
because they,
full
they
on,
they finally in the end, they were able to tone that down in a way where it still looked like recognizable. They
yeah,
they weave the stuff into it, which gave it kind of a witch, kind of Wiccan type look to it. And then the rest of the outfit, it wasn't the comic book, but it was like the MCU version of the comic book costume.
and now I just pre-ordered the Marvel Select Scarlet Witch figure, Elizabeth Olsen design, and it has a hood option too.
Yeah,
So
a lot of the yeah, a lot of the elements are there, you know.
yeah,
But
it makes it practical because when she signed up, they talked about she was told, okay, when you go back and look at these comics, here's the comics you should read. Just know that you're not going to be wearing the tiara and the bathing suit. Like that's basically what it was. And she's like, okay,
ever,
good.
you're
Yeah,
never gonna win.
ever. So when you see that final costume, you see how it's practical in the sense of like it, kind of keeping up with the times and kind of like your Ms. Marvel into the Captain Marvel costume. It's just like, you know what? Rather than having her just wearing the Baywatch outfit, maybe give her something that she can, fight in and, just update it. It was very comic booky. It's very fun to look at in comic books and everything like that. But when it comes to it,
I mean, they've done that with pretty much every character in there.
yeah,
Uh, Captain America, he's gone through a few costume changes throughout the movies. Some I liked more than others. That they were a little bit more accurate and stuff like that. Um, and you know, Iron Man was an easy one because the armor has changed throughout the years in there. They actually were able to do a pretty good job of that. Doctor Strange, again, it had the elements of Doctor Strange from the comics, but they gave it a little bit more of a real look
Yeah.
to it. I mean, not real like you would expect to see a guy dressed like that walking down the street type real, but you know, you would it would look more real than walking down in the actual comic book version. And they did give him the yellow gloves at one point, um, but they weren't going to do that long term because you look at those and you think he looks like he's about to wash the dishes or scrub the toilet or something. Um, so it's not going to work to just do that all the time. And I think most people were happy with it. Like anything in the movies from comics or whatever, there were probably plenty of people who had gripes, but I think they did a pretty good job with the costuming, and overall have done a good job adapting the comic book looks into the real into the MCU, into the movies. I'm more of a fan of them adapting them to the movies than of them adapting the comics to look like the movies,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I think the comic book versions, as they were kind of look, they fit the comics.
Yeah.
You know, one fits the movies, one fits the comics. Keep it at that.
And this one fits the cosplayer. I don't have her name, but within 3 days, she made her costume based off of the final episode of WandaVision. And this was kind of like blown up, and it was just like, holy crap! Like this person saw that costume and is just like, I need to cosplay this. And she spent the next 3 days probably not eating or sleeping because it's pretty crazy how that just looks like she, stole it from the set or something. So and during COVID times, that's a lot harder to do. So to get
Yeah,
into the
and she
set,
she even did the makeup to get a little bit of that Olsen look too.
yeah, yeah, and
Which I don't
full
know how much
on.
is makeup and how much is her just sucking in her cheeks. Like,
Well, her boyfriend who was cosplaying as White Vision kind of crunched her face bones in a little
oh,
bit,
like,
and that's yeah, did a little Kevin McAllister, if you will. But overall, as a show, like you watched, I would assume every episode with at least your wife, if not your kids that are at home. Is that correct?
yes, wife and two of the three kids. Yeah.
And how about as an overall consensus of where we started the show with our three very solidly centric sitcom episodes, but then giving us our MCU feel that we come to know and love in episode 4, seeing this journey and how it all kind of ended and where we're kind of leaving it. Would you have a overall kind of review as the family and how you guys kind of reacted and enjoyed or didn't enjoy WandaVision?
Um, we all enjoyed it. I think the reaction for my family, I know you've talked about how much you loved the first few episodes. You know, I think if it would have been like that for my personal tastes, I probably wouldn't have watched it. And I think that was kind of the same reaction that the rest of my family had. But for us, we all knew that this was, they're going somewhere with this,
Yeah.
and we wanted to see where that was. And I'm glad that we stuck around. I feel bad for the people who didn't, that were just like, what the fuck is this? Click. After an episode or two or maybe three, and that's all they got through. I know of at least one person that's like, yeah, I got through the third and I couldn't do it. It's like that's when it really got going.
That was the
you, you,
biggest moment. Yeah. Yeah.
give
But
it one more
yeah,
episode. Give it one more episode.
I've
But
heard some people, and even though the
that's how it
show,
was.
I know the show is obviously very rooted in MCU continuity with, just going back to everything. But there are some people that, whether they're friends of friends or just kind of reading comments here and there, people that, really didn't know anything about the MCU, but it's just like, hey, it pops up on Disney Plus. Those 3 episodes could be the selling point of like, hey, this is fun. I don't exactly know who these people are and why there's a robot and she's a witch, but I'm like, okay, whatever. And there's people that definitely like this was oddly enough their intro into the MCU. A friend of mine, while she had watched some of the movies here and there, but she wasn't like a diehard where she had to see every single one of the diehard movies and the MCU. Uh, I knew saying that word was going to be bad, but she watched the first episode of WandaVision and then she stopped and she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna go watch every Marvel movie." So right now, she did that a couple days ago, and she just finished Civil War today. So like, she's like burning right through this stuff just so she could pick up and rewatch WandaVision from that first episode she left off on. So the show is working on different levels for everybody, but yeah, like you said, your family's hip enough to know that. Well, yeah, they're doing something with this.
Now, I wonder how many people weren't familiar, hadn't watched all this MCU stuff, and was flipping around through Disney Plus and went, what's this? I'll check it out. They're watching the first episode and going, this is just Bewitched. They're just rehashing Bewitched. God, they can't do anything original anymore.
Didn't Will Ferrell and Nicole Kidman do that already? Like,
Yeah.
now they're rebooting it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were happy, and I'm always pleased to hear Tammy say, I really liked that, especially if it's something that she's kind of on the fence about or whatever, and because she's not as much of a fan. I mean, she's liked all the MCU stuff, and she likes a lot of superhero stuff and whatever. I still can't get her to read comics, but I've tried, and but so to her, she's judging it on other things than what I'm judging it on, and for her to say, yeah, I really liked that, is great. I love hearing that from her.
Yeah, in this show, after we've seen the big battles and we see the creation of the Scarlet Witch, her basically Agnes has been working to obtain her powers and learn her secrets and how she's able to access this kind of power. And Wanda pulls a little fun scene. I love the whole scene where they're fighting in the sky and Wanda makes everything just cloudy and dark and red, and it gets really scary looking up there with all the stuff going on. Then she uses one of Agatha's tricks that she taught her in the basement of with using, I forget the term of it, but using the things that are basically allowing her to cast a spell and nobody else using magic around her, which was where Wanda was able to kind of get the one up on Agnes. And I keep saying Agnes and Agatha, so we'll continue to do that.
Agnes
Yeah, but the Agnes. But what I liked about how this ended, of Agnes being trapped back into her nosy neighbor role, because if we were to predict, like, all right, where's this stuff going in the future? Well, we're definitely getting Wanda in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. She is filming, that's happening, and I'm wondering if that after that post-credit scene, we saw Wanda. Um, Going through the Darkhold book, and while her other self is just having tea in Bruce Banner's cabin or something, but then she's sitting there. It seemed like a different form of astral
Yeah,
projection
it's
beyond.
it's like basically like she's using astral projection, which we've seen Doctor Strange do to learn,
Yeah,
and now we're seeing her doing it, but it's different.
yeah, it's a different level.
But but we're told she's more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, so she can maybe do that. As we're sitting here and you're talking about the names, I keep going back with Agatha and Agnes and whatever. I feel like such an idiot because this is the first time that it actually dawned on me, like
Oh,
that name, like
yeah,
Agatha Harkness,
yeah,
Ag Harkness,
yeah.
Agatha Harkness.
Ignis.
It's just the beginning and the end of the whole name, Agnes. I'm like, and like that simple thought, like just now, it's like, I mean, I knew that Agatha, Agnes, it's a similar,
Yeah.
but I never took the whole name and figured out,
Right.
wait, it's just the beginning and the end of
That was one of the things when she was cast and we heard her name and stuff. Then, most of the internet was just like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah, Agnes, Agatha Harkness."
yeah. And a lot of people jump to that, but I never like I said, I'm feeling like an idiot now because
Yeah.
it just never that switch in my brain never went off to say, yeah, that's what it is. That's why it's the we just pushed that together and got Agnes.
And speaking of switching brains and things like that, we saw our Westview Vision, do his little finger tapping on White Vision's brain to get a little more Vision on Vision action before the episode ends. But it basically allowed him to watch all of the MCU movies in fast forward. Like Barry Allen would watch something or read something. That's how the White Vision was able to kind of see, and they kind of parted ways. And that leaves Vision as a giant question mark into the MCU, because there's a world where I could see him not being any part of Doctor Strange 2 at all. But all of a sudden, it's just like 3 years down the road, he just pops up in something random. And it's just like, oh, because we're going to be so distracted by everything that I don't think anybody's going to expect when Vision eventually returns, because he's out there. He's going to come back. But
He is. It would be crazy if he didn't return.
yeah,
You know, here you have first of all, you've got an actor who people love in the role, who loves the role, and would would have no problems at all to come back to this.
yeah.
Um, and it's a popular character, and now we have this where it's left people wanting to go, what's happening? What's going on? I want more. I got to know what happens with him. And it would be so horrible of Disney, of Marvel, to just leave that hanging and never come back to it.
Now, even though this episode was titled or the series finale, it plays with all of the episode titles being homages and tropes and whatever nods to television programs and how they're structured. It still says season one when you go to it on Disney Plus. Now, what if they do a season two of WandaVision, but now it's the Tom King and Gabriel Walta version, in which this Vision, next time we meet him, he's in Washington, D.C., and he's now created his robot family. Um, Obviously, a lot of people look at it being like, oh, they're just using the same thing they did in the first season or something, while obviously doing something completely different. But while I don't think that's going to happen, I just thought of that in the moment, being like, that would be cool to kind of see the uh, Viv Vision and Virginia and Vin, and see all of the robot characters, and maybe bring Sparky back into the proper green robotic dog. So,
Yeah. First of all, I want to point out that you started that with doo doo.
yeah, I
But
almost stopped, but I kept going.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
I mean, maybe that's the next step. Because I can't really actually see WandaVision getting another season.
yeah, yeah,
But definitely we could see things going on. So that could be it. Maybe they're like, we don't have a spot for Vision in the movies. We don't have a spot for him in a film or whatever. Like I said, I could see him coming back for Avengers, but you'd want to see something in the meantime.
yeah.
Just pop him into Avengers again, and with no story on where he went and what he's done. I mean, did he just go right back to the Avengers and that was it? So we could, I could see that actually doing a show on Vision, leaving out the Scarlet Witch because she's
Yeah.
going to do her thing. And I think it would be great to see them end up back together at some point.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, why not some series about this android who's, well, it wasn't human, but had a certain amount of humanity, and then he lost it and he died twice, and then he comes back, and now he's got to find his place in the world. And I could see some sort of show with a twist about this synthetic humanoid being, just maybe that's what he's doing, is now it's his turn to just figure out, well, who am I?
Simply Vision, not simply, but Vision as the
Simply
title.
Vision.
It's simply Vision all along. So,
Yeah, we're stripping it down and whatever, and it's just gonna simple vision.
Simp Simp Vision. Uh, Going back to the one.
2020 vision. It's actually just Vision walking around with a mask,
There we go. It's a Paul
keeping
Bettany
6 feet
mask.
away from everyone,
They're perfect.
pretty much just
Um,
staying at home.
uh, One thing going back to the astral projection and all that kind of stuff, we hear Billy and Tommy screaming for help at the very end. I assume you heard that audible clip. When she's flipping through the book, you hear "Mom, help, help, Mom, Mom."
Yeah, and I can't imagine it clearly right now,
Okay,
but yeah.
so once she's flipping through and you're just kind of flipping out, being like, "Whoa, there's two Wandas here," blah blah blah. That is what you hear as she's flipping through that book. You hear those actors, those younger voices of Billy and Tommy screaming for help. Now, a friend of mine who I just introduced to the MCU this past summer, she's all caught up, and we've been watching WandaVision week by week. As a mother, the one thing she brought out of this was she thought it was weird that when Wanda and Vision kind of tuck their kids into bed, as we see the whole Westview basically get undone to kind of just get rid of everybody. We see Vision go away later, blah, blah, blah. But the whole idea was kind of just saying, well, they had their kids. Wanda felt lucky that they chose her to be their mom, and they tuck them into bed. And that's a good way of not showing kids die in a Disney Plus show. But when I'm watching this, not until I didn't think that was happening at all. And when my friend asked, being like, I figured she would, as a mother, that she would just be holding them as they're tucked into bed, and that's how they would end. And she just felt weird about that. But I'm like, oh, I didn't even think of that, because my guess, based off of hearing their voices, is that since we didn't see them die, that Wanda basically did something to protect them from dying, but to keep it from Vision. Because if Vision knew about this before he was committed to die again, Vision wouldn't have stood for that. He'd be like, no, they have to go too. So my understanding was that since we didn't see it, she did some sort of spell to basically shoot them off into the multiverse, and now she has to go find them and use every power that she has to bring back her children, and then maybe we will see them be teenagers, as we do in the new Avengers comics or Young Avengers comics. Yes.
I guess my take on it would be I could see her tucking them in and closing the door, because who wants to see their kids just like,
Yeah.
and that way she can remember them and think of them as I tucked them in.
Yeah.
That's where they are. That's how I remember them. Because let's face it, she doesn't handle like the death and everything very well.
What?
Um, yeah, it's yeah. Who knew? Um, but but so I can see that. But what is her motivation for learning how to control the magic? I mean, look at what she did, not being able to control it. So now, what is her motivation for actually learning and taking that book and reading it? What do you think that she's trying to do? And I think there's a very good chance that her whole purpose now is finding a way to actually bring back her family.
Yeah.
And I would think that Vision would be part of that. Although, yeah, I don't know that she necessarily knows about White Vision, what's going
Yeah,
on.
I don't think she does.
So, I think that she would try to, unless she was finally able to let go of Vision at this point, but to also lose the kids like that. I think she's out there with that purpose of like, I'm trying to learn how to do this, and I know that there's a way that I can bring my family back.
Yeah. And with all the stuff they have coming down on Disney Plus, with having Kate Bishop into the Hawkeye series, Kamala Khan, Ms. Marvel, they've announced Riri Williams is going to be joining. They have Cassie Lang, who is going to be, she's older after the snap, and she's going to be in the Ant-Man 3. She-Hulk, well, She-Hulk, yeah, maybe they wouldn't because she's probably not going to be young. But all of these young characters that are coming up, and we know that Miles exists in the MCU per the Homecoming movie, which is the mention of, oh, I have a nephew that lives here. Um, all of these young characters are being developed in all of their different mediums and shows and whatever. So I think that by the outcome of Doctor Strange 2, we'll probably see those little boys again in some sort of context. But I think by the end of all of this is that we will see them as teenagers, old enough, kind of put them in line with Kate Bishop and Kamala and all of them to kind of create that real young generation if they were to do a Champions Young Avengers type of approach to it. So
Yeah, I think a lot of people are thinking that, and if enough people are thinking that and wanting that, then why wouldn't they do it?
yeah.
I want to go back, kind of backtrack on something that I said. I said I couldn't. Yep. Yeah, thanks. But I said I couldn't really picture them doing a WandaVision like a season two. But then as we're talking about where this could go, I thought, I could see them actually doing this because if she's trying to get the family back, you know, maybe she succeeds, and then we have the means to actually have a second season. She's got the family, and now what? Now what do they do now that they're back? How do they live a normal life or whatever?
Yeah, seeing that season one still up there, and the series finale is basically just throwing you off the scent of the idea of like you think it's a series finale for the television show WandaVision. And while they have a couple other puzzle pieces to get to, they're obviously not going to be like, oh yeah, we're doing a season two. We just have to do this first. So yeah, I think there's still that shred of possibility to return to that, and I'm excited for that as a Wanda and Vision fan myself. But ultimately, I obviously absolutely loved it, and getting those up to 3 movies worth of content when I just said at the beginning where I'm just like, yeah, they're probably not going to make a movie for them. And now within 2 months, we have 3 times that amount. Um, so I'm very happy on that. We do have a behind the scenes feature that comes out, documentary series that comes out on Friday. I'm not sure if it's just one standalone hour documentary or if it's like the Mandalorian season one where they had one per episode, but it is our 1 week off of the canon continuity storytelling until the Falcon and the Winter Soldier starts. Um, Here on Under the Cowl, I could see us talking maybe about that debut, but then maybe just holding off until the finale rather than having a episode by episode.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of thinking a little bit more of like not even talking about the first episode right away, and maybe picking up on it a few episodes in.
That works.
It gives us a chance to cover some other stuff, gives other people opportunity to come in or to catch up or whatever. And we give everybody some fair warnings, like watch this because we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
But after now, do you know, are they going to do, are they going to kick it off with 2 episodes right away?
I don't think they will. We know we're getting 6 episodes. They've been saying that it's almost like an 8 hour movie. So that means we're getting an hour and change for those episodes. WandaVision was a very big question mark on how long every episode was going to be. But this is the most recent thing of saying that it's almost like an 8 hour movie. So I doubt we will see a 2 episode drop just based on the fact that each episode is already going to be an hour. But hey, who knows? I didn't think they were dropping 2 for WandaVision, but those were half hours.
So yeah, I guess we'll see next week.
Yeah, we'll find out soon enough. But yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
I just can't wait to see, why. I mean, I was kind of expecting Captain America and the Winter Soldier. You know, thinking, okay, well, now we've got a new Captain America. But like I said,
Yeah.
obviously we don't, and maybe this show is really just about that transformation.
Yeah, when you were talking about that earlier, that would make sense in the fact with WandaVision being the creation of the Scarlet Witch, much like the Sam Wilson comics. While yes, he was given the shield and the costume almost immediately, but he had to earn it, and it was a lot of it was a rift in America of people kind of taking sides on not my Captain America was a thing that actually happened in those books. So you could see that being a focus of a 8 hour story. So
And we're gonna get that because we're gonna get a who the government picks as the new Captain America.
yes, yes.
So that's, I mean, that's part of it. So it does make sense that this becomes a, you know, kind of the not exactly an origin story, but more of a transformation story, um, and getting us a new Captain America,
Because
which we assume is Sam. You know,
Even Sam himself is probably not feeling like he deserves it, even when getting the shield from Steve and doesn't feel like it's his, and Steve confirming that it was. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Sam debating that just with himself, whether even if people, because I'm sure Bucky is very, the way he's nodding and encouraging, but Sam needs to come to the terms of accepting himself as Captain America, let alone the country and the world. So,
yeah.
but yeah, so lots of stuff to go, to see to keep us distracted as we get closer to that May date, which they're standing firm with Black Widow for the theaters, whether or not that's May, but they're not backing down to the Disney Plus subscription thing like they've been doing a couple times here.
Now I'm trying to think because I don't know what else playing in theaters right now. I honestly haven't kept up with it, but I will say that I went past the theater in West Bend, off Paradise, not the downtown one,
Yep.
and there were actually a lot of cars in there. I want to say it was like last weekend. So
Yeah, so
people are going out, and I
last
don't know
weekend,
throughout the week. And this whole episode is just going to be me cutting you off.
that's all right. The just to back up their traffic and stuff is that their Disney Plus released, I think Raya, I think it's called, Disney animated movie starring Kelly Marie Tran. Um, that had a theater and Disney Plus subscription release. So that was definitely a big movie that would draw. And Tom and Jerry just came out that had a theater and HBO Max release. So we are getting some quote unquote big movies. Um, and King Kong is right around the corner in a couple weeks here. As far as the big blockbuster, popcorn type of movie, but Black Widow would be the one that, when it comes to like box office expectations, that's why they're really just saying, we have no plans on doing the Disney Plus
Yeah.
premiere access for Black Widow. And you're seeing the rollout of the vaccines. I think Wisconsin here actually is very in the top percent of the country that I think is getting it done more from the latest I've seen on it and everything. But I think the latest thing was that by the end of May that the everyone who wants the vaccine will have the access to it and things like that. I think that it's weird to think like we're all doing this so we can get Black Widow in the movie theaters. Like when Black Widow, when all of this stuff started a year ago, Black Widow was getting within a month of release where tickets were about to be on sale, and I told many people at work we didn't know, like, all right, is this thing just going to be going on for 2 weeks and then we'll just be back to where we're at? And I just said, I'm like, if Black Widow gets postponed, then I know things are serious in the world. And it happened twice. And we're getting to that point now where I'm just like, if Black Widow comes out in the opening May, 1 year after it was supposed to, then I think the pandemic is over and we can all return and eat in restaurants and lick guardrails again and whatever. But That's where my mindset is if Black Widow comes out, that's a good sign. Just if it's not, if it doesn't look good, Disney just will postpone it again. Yeah, so you heard it here. Black Widow comes out. Um, the world has returned.
Well, I guess that does it for this
Yep.
week. And so tune in next week when we don't talk about WandaVision.